From the state capitol in Albany, Governor Hugh L. Carey's State of the State address. The membership of the State Assembly and State Senate have gathered in joint session in the Assembly chamber, where just 2 days ago, Governor Carey was inaugurated for his second term as governor. Today, the governor will deliver his annual message to the legislature, marking the start of a new legislative session. In his speech, the governor will outline the goals of his new administration. Lieutenant Governor Mario Cuomo presides over the joint session of the Senate and Assembly.
I note the presence of our esteemed jurists from the Court of Appeals, and I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce them. First, our new Chief Judge, Lawrence H. Cook. Associate Judge, Matthew J. Jason. Associate Judge, Dominic Gabrielli. Associate Judge, Hugh L. Jones. Associate Judge, Sal Wackler. Associate Judge, Jacob D. Fuchsberg. Pursuant to a resolution duly adopted in each of the houses of the legislature, the Senate and Assembly of the State of New York are met in joint session for the purpose of receiving the annual message to the legislature from the Governor of the State of New York. I'm delighted to present our Governor, Governor Hugh L. Carey.
Lieutenant Governor Cuomo, Speaker Fink, Majority Leader Anderson, Mr. Comptroller, Mr. Attorney General, members of the Judiciary, members of the honorable bodies, Reverend Layman Bruner, and ladies and gentlemen of the State of New York. I am gratified and honored to be before you as the re-elected Governor of the State of New York. Today, I see a new leadership in the Assembly, and I congratulate you on your election and look forward to working closely with you and your colleagues in the Assembly. And I welcome the continued leadership in the Senate. You have played a constructive role during the past 4 years. I look forward to the next 4. Today, I also have a new partner, friend, Lieutenant Governor Mario Cuomo, whose counsel and wisdom and leadership will be so important to me and to the people of our state during the coming years. I know we are committed to executive and legislative teamwork in the best interests of our people. This past November, in the ultimate test of a democracy, the citizens of this state gave their approval to our record, to our hope for the future of New York. We shall honor their trust with the vision and effort that is to be expected in the leadership of the Empire State. 2 days ago, in my inaugural address to the people of New York, I spoke of a new era of opportunity and leadership, one of confidence in our ability to meet challenges and to grasp our own future. Our will has been tested by crisis and our skills sharpened by adversity. We met the test with fortitude. We chose a balanced course. We maintained our commitment to excellence. Now we can see the results of our efforts. When New York was in financial jeopardy, our employees helped us contain the cost of government. We went to Washington and returned with a guarantee of survival for the nation's largest city. We forged a partnership with business and labor to find ways to keep jobs and business in New York. We gave local governments the means to maintain their services and the incentives to cut their costs. In the face of repeated crises, we fulfilled our responsibility to improve the daily lives of New Yorkers. We in the executive and you in the legislature worked in tandem to surmount the partisan differences, even in the election years. And in the past 2 years, we gave New Yorkers a dividend on the hard-earned money they've invested in taxes. We cut taxes by more than $1 billion, the largest tax reduction in our history. We forged a new compact with our taxpayers. We did what was right for New York. Now we begin a new term with a further commitment to New Yorkers, a commitment to gear up our state's economy for the long-term growth we need to assure a future of pride, responsibility, and compassion. Let no one underestimate the obstacles in our path. We face an inflation that bleeds our citizens as it increased the pressure on our state and local governments. The national remedies that are proposed must complement, not diminish, the programs that have helped our cities and counties. We must insist that the federal government meet its responsibilities. For the largest city in this nation, this is a matter of survival. In this era of limits and economic uncertainty, we can manage our resources and still maintain our commitment to those in need. Jobs are what people want, and job creation in the private sector must remain our goal. We are focusing our capital resources on transportation and economic development projects essential to the task of building our economy and generating jobs. We will continue programs and reforms that reinforce the special status of this state. We have begun the reform of our courts. We are committed to making our streets safer. We remain determined to meet the needs of the young, elderly, disabled, and minorities. When the nation looks to New York for leadership, we will provide it. Our highest priority for the year ahead must be to further our multi-year program of tax reductions. We must also develop incentives for local governments to hold the line on spending and taxes. We did not need a referendum to convince us that the burden of taxes on New Yorkers was too high. Because of our actions in 1977 and 1978, state taxes will be reduced by an additional $248 million this year. In my executive budget, I will present the specifics of a proposal which, when fully effective, will lower state taxes by additional $225 million in the year ahead. It is my hope and my expectation that our efforts to reduce state taxes will be joined by state tax stabilization at the local levels. But local government expenditures cannot be controlled without local implementation of the same type of tough cost control measures we have instituted on the state level. I have asked Lieutenant Governor Cuomo to develop guidelines for local government expenditure growth. We will provide incentives for control of local expenditures. Unfortunately, the economic progress promised by state tax reductions is threatened by a severe national inflation. I am heartened by the President's resolve to use all the resources at his command to combat inflation. From a national perspective, a break is required on both prices and wages. But I am compelled to remind our leaders in Washington that what may be fruitful for the nation as a whole may be irresponsible if blindly and harshly applied to our state. What Washington must realize is that our state, as a government and as an economy, has not contributed to inflation. Since we are not the cause of inflation, simply applying a stern national remedy here in New York will lead only to further unemployment and increased human misery. Our state and our region require a countervailing approach to national actions against inflation. I will work with my fellow governors and mayors of the Northeast and with our representatives in Washington to assure that the President's anti-inflation policies are equitably applied. We will also work with Washington to strengthen our regional partnership in the coalition of Northeast governors. A major objective of the coalition has been the establishment of an energy corporation of the Northeast. That corporation in Kono would help our region become less reliant on OPEC oil. I will work toward passage of necessary legislation at the federal and state level this year. We can take pride in the tremendous economic progress we have made here in New York. In the last 3 years, we added more than 150,000 private sector jobs. Our unemployment rate was above 10%. It has declined to nearly 7%. We've made changes in the business climate in this state that many thought were not possible. But our successes must not lead to complacency. This year, I will propose greater flexibility in the Urban Development Corporation's bonding authority to take advantage of the best development prospects. Cooperating with the state and New York City, the Port Authority will join force with the private sector to raise $1 billion to build and operate industrial parks in the New York metropolitan area. This will result in 30,000 new jobs and help stabilize the manufacturing base of the New York metropolitan region. I will create a Council on International Business to serve as a catalyst for increased foreign business activity among New York firms. Our successful programs to expand tourism and recreational development have achieved wide acclaim. The I Love New York campaign has succeeded and will be enhanced. For some areas in New York State, casino gambling offers the potential for increased tourism and job creation. I will establish a blue ribbon panel of leaders in various fields to examine the impact of casino gambling and make recommendations as to its form in New York. We must also expedite passage of the necessary legislation to build the convention center in New York City. Each day of delay is a costly impediment to the people and economy of New York City. I urge your speedy approval of that legislation. Last year, the Empire State Games brought together our finest young athletic talent in the state, and they will be held again this year. And we cannot forget the imminence of one of the truly great events to take place in the Empire State. We are on time, and we will be ready for one of the most spectacular sporting events in the world, the 1980 Winter Olympics at Lake Placid, New York. As we review our achievements and our plans for improving the state's economy, we must indeed recognize the critical role of labor, working not as antagonists, but as partners with business and with government. Labor has been a steadfast supporter in efforts to achieve economic growth and prosperity in New York. We welcome that partnership. Both labor and business depend on an effective transportation system. Our railroads are a critical part of that system. New York City and Long Island remain cut off from modern rail freight service because of restrictions on rail lines serving the area. These obstacles must be removed. I will direct that we use available Port Authority funds for a $25 million program of rail access improvements. Also important to our economy and our mass transit system, which serve our cities and enable our commercial centers to grow, we have today the need that must be recognized. Today, I will reaffirm my pledge. We will hold mass transit fares at present levels throughout this state. In 1978, I announced a 6-year state, federal, and Port Authority program to provide more than $800 million of mass transportation improvements in the New York metropolitan area over and above our normal state transit improvement programs. Legislation to make this possible must be enacted. We also understand the contribution of our highway system. However, any new road that we construct must pass a stringent test. It must contribute to the overall economic development of our state. One project which clearly meets that test is the Westway, a project which will not only improve transportation access in New York City, but contribute to the beauty and revitalization of the West Side, while creating and preserving critically needed jobs. It is one of the most important economic and affirmative action programs in the history of the city and will be consistent with all environmental laws and regulation. Attention to our economy need not be in conflict with the protection of our environment. The problems associated with the dumping and abandonment of toxic chemicals in waste sites across the state are of primary concern. I will direct the Department of Environmental Conservation and the Department of Health to prepare a comprehensive strategy of programs and funding for a federal, state, local approach to the problems of hazardous waste. The people are justly concerned. The state is vigorously meeting the problem. The federal government must not ignore it. Essential to a relationship of trust between a government and its citizens is justice that is swift and fair. In 1976, I proposed constitutional amendments and centralized court administration, merit appointment of judges, and revision of the procedures for judicial discipline. Voter approval of these constitutional amendments has brought real court reform to New York, reform that is symbolized by my appointment of the new Chief Judge of the Court of Appeals. This year, the effort for court reform must be continued. I will again propose that we present to the people constitutional amendments providing for merit selection of well-qualified judges to all courts of this state and establishing a single statewide trial court. My Executive Advisory Committee on Sentencing has conducted a study of the sentencing function and structure in New York State. The report is currently undergoing review. I will work with you on the legislative recommendations that will result. However, I feel that we must move in one area of sentencing immediately. People want security from fear. I therefore ask for your support in passage of a bill providing life sentence without parole for certain capital crimes. It is now time to deal with the real issue of protecting our people by putting willful killers away without any prospect for release. But we must realize all our efforts to reform and effectively manage our criminal justice system will be fruitless if we do not address the needs of our young people. Last year, at my request, a major new program to assist communities in developing and preventing programs for juvenile delinquency and expanding youth development services was funded. I will ask for an expansion of this effort so we can meet this progressive commitment to our youth for productive and meaningful lives. This year, it's my intention to further improve the management of our state government. I will transform the present state division of the budget into an office for management and budget. In the 50th year of the executive budget process in New York State, it is appropriate to streamline and improve the central budget and management office. I will ask for your approval for the creation of an Office of State Planning to provide the state with a central planning capability. During my first term, I directed the State Transportation Department to undertake a management study of the Metropolitan Transportation Authority. This study is now complete, and its recommendations are already being carried out on the Long Island Railroad. We intend to carry out other recommendations that will be made for the other MTA affiliates serving New York City and suburban counties. As part of my overall reorganization effort, I will propose a restructuring of agency responsibilities relating to housing development, management, and policy. I will also create a state ombudsman service to assist citizens in identifying and contacting the appropriate agencies and programs that have been created to meet their needs. This office will be led by Lieutenant Governor Cuomo, who was an effective ombudsman while Secretary of State. To work with the Ombudsman Service, I will propose the creation of an Office of Public Advocate to be a constant watchdog to ensure that the public interest will at all times be adequately and forcefully represented. I have spoken many times of the need of public financing of campaigns in New York State. I asked for such legislation in my first annual message. I remain firmly resolved that we should have public financing of campaigns in New York State. I will also propose a major reform in the state civil service system to provide employees with incentives and promotional opportunities not provided by the existing system. The public demands full financial disclosure from top-level personnel in government. I will submit legislation to require such disclosure. I've already signed an executive order to insist that we take the lead in affirmative action programs. We will continue our commitment to put the full moral and institutional force of our government behind the legitimate rights of women and minorities. During 1978, the United Nations General Assembly passed a resolution designating 1979 as the International Year of the Child. It is a reaffirmation of its commitment to the Declaration of Rights of the Child and calls for all nations to examine their policies and programs on behalf of children. I have established a state commission on the International Year of the Child to assure that New York's long history of promoting progress for all of our children continues into the decade ahead. All too often, young people fail to achieve their full potential because the special services they need are not available. We will seek comprehensive school-based services to such children. Last year, at my request, you provided support for a state program to address the problem of teenage pregnancy. This year, I will expand these counseling, residential, and planning programs to meet the needs of our troubled teenagers. The health of our citizens will continue to be my first and our highest priority. I am proud of the record we have achieved in the last 4 years. During that period, the state has become the national model for an efficient health care system. With the leadership of my Special Assistant, Dr. Carey, for Health Affairs, we have forged a unique partnership between state officials and health workers in the private sector that has made government responsive to the health needs of all our citizens. I will shortly deliver my annual State of the Health message, which will contain major program proposals for 1979. But there are some points I wish to emphasize today. My primary emphasis will continue to be education and prevention. I will ask the legislature for a permanent extension of legislation which authorized us to regulate hospital charges. The Office of Mental Health will improve inpatient care in its psychiatric centers, and the Department of Mental Retardation will extend the benefits embodied in the Willowbrook Consent Decree. In 1975, we inherited a welfare program characterized by excessive cost and inefficiency. We cut welfare ineligibility in half. We cut welfare overpayments. We saved money without reducing needed assistance. In the Medicaid program, we contained costs and maintained medical services. I will expand these efforts. The needs of our older citizens must always be a major concern. I will propose further tax reductions for the elderly through expansion of the property tax circuit breaker program we enacted last year. I will propose a $10 million program to provide private drug insurance for those elderly citizens earning under $8,000 annually. This program could well become a model for society that wants its elderly to live lives with dignity and health. We know that extensive and necessary programs for our children cannot be provided without a fair and fiscally responsible system of school finance. We must respond to the ruling in the Levittown case with a fundamental reform of our school finance system. The Board of Regents has joined me in appointing a broadly based task force to propose a strategy for reform. My executive budget will contain a significant increase in state aid to education, as well as several proposals to reduce the present inequities. We must also strengthen the city university through changes in its finance and governance structures to reflect the city's capabilities and the role of this state. I propose over the next 4 years, the state assume the full funding of the university's senior colleges. This is sound educational policy and a key element in a larger program of financial aid to New York City. unique needs and opportunities, all urban areas demand special state commitments. I will issue an executive order creating an urban affairs cabinet chaired by Lieutenant Governor Cuomo to coordinate state policy affecting urban areas. The key to urban revitalization is to encourage private sector investment in our urban areas. We must remove the obstacles which currently discourage such investments. In recent weeks, I signed into law a bill making it illegal to deny mortgages solely on the basis of geographic location. I propose an overhaul of the state's FAIR Plan to make affordable business and homeowners insurance coverage available in distressed urban areas. I will also propose strong measures to combat arson, a crime which each year destroys the homes, businesses, and lives of too many New Yorkers. I will propose a new state technical assistance program to strengthen assistance to local community development efforts. With these and other tools, we can begin to target special areas for urban development. Our first 4 years tested all of us, and through teamwork and determination, we overcame long odds. Our state has earned a place of national leadership and recognition. These next 4 years provide us with a new opportunity to make government more responsive to the people's needs. We have the tools that we forged in adversity, the wisdom born of that experience, and the will to take on the future. I ask you now to join me in the undertaking before us. Let us reach beyond simple survival and expedience. The challenges facing us demand leadership and excellence. We in New York can and will provide what is required. And let our inspirations, not just our budgets, be the measure of our achievements. Therefore, let the nation look to New York today in the work we begin together. God bless you, and I look forward to the years ahead. Thank you very much.
In his State of the State address, Governor Hugh L. Carey has pledged that his executive budget will reflect still further tax reductions for New Yorkers. He also said that state government will work closely with localities to reduce expenditures. Governor Carey said he will continue to press for the creation of jobs in the private sector and work with the White House and the Congress to promote programs vital to New York and the Northeast. This coverage of Governor Hugh L. Carey's State of the State address has been produced by the Executive Chamber Press Office through the facilities of the New York Network, a service of the State University of New York.
STANLEY, FINK, and to all the members of the Assembly for the hospitality which has been afforded to us. I would ask the members of the Senate to please return immediately to the Senate chamber so that we may continue with the business of